Because the paycheck arrives on time. Because staying in a life they complain about feels familiar. Because remaining in a role that could replace them tomorrow feels safe today. No one forces them to sign the loans. No one forces them to trade decades of their time for the promise of security. No one forces them to spend money chasing approval, status, and the illusion of being acceptable. They volunteer, they agree, they pay the price willingly. Modern systems do not enslave people through violence, they enslave them through comfort. The deal is simple and brutally effective. You give me your freedom, I give you certainty, and most people sign immediately. It feels reasonable, it feels mature, it feels responsible. People prefer to believe they are victims of the system. Programmed by education, manipulated by society, that story is comforting. It protects their self-image, while demanding no change in position. The more disturbing truth is this: the system does not need to force anyone. It only rewards those willing to stay exactly where they are. Freedom is not free. Freedom demands risk. Freedom demands responsibility. Freedom demands the ability to stand alone without guarantees. And here is what almost no one wants to admit. People do not lack intelligence. They lack the courage to pay the price. They know they are being used. They know they are replaceable. They know they are living below their capacity, yet they continue anyway. Because the real cost of freedom, uncertainty, isolation, visible failure, loss of safety, is too high for them. This is not a story about oppressors and victims. This is a story about conscious adults who actively choose the most comfortable cage they can survive in. And if you believe you are different, stay with this. Because the final truth does not live in the system. It does not live in society. It does not live in money. It lives in what you protect every single day and have never dared to put on the scale. By the end of this, you will understand why most people never escape, even when they understand everything. The core illusion. Most people believe they are paying to live. They work, earn income, spend money, borrow, insure themselves, pay taxes, and tell themselves this is responsibility. They call it building a life, but strip away the rational language, and a different truth appears. They are not paying to live. They are paying to avoid responsibility. A steady paycheck is not freedom. It is a security fee. Debt is not opportunity. It is a fee to postpone risk. Insurance is not safety. It is a fee to quiet fear. Consumption is not enjoyment. It is a temporary anesthetic. Every payment buys the same thing, the feeling that everything is under control, even though nothing actually is. People do not hate work. They hate uncertainty. They are willing to trade 10, 20, 30 years of their lives, as long as the system answers one terrifying question for them. What happens to me if this disappears? As long as someone else defines the structure, the rules, the salary, the future, they feel safe. Because safety is not about freedom, it is about predictability. Freedom is not expensive because it requires money. Freedom is expensive because it offers no guarantees. No one promises success. No one promises stability. No one promises you are right. And this is where most people retreat, not because they are incapable, not because they are ignorant, but because they cannot tolerate standing in a space where nothing is certain and no one is responsible but them. Look closely around you. How many people claim they hate their life, yet defend it aggressively? How many complain about their job, yet panic at the idea of leaving? How many say they want freedom, yet design their entire existence around monthly payments? This contradiction is not accidental. It is the result of a deeply rooted illusion that full responsibility is dangerous, while dependence is safe. The truth is the opposite. A person who refuses responsibility eventually lives according to someone else's decisions. A person who avoids uncertainty ends up trapped in a future written by others. That is why the system functions so smoothly. It does not need force. It does not need threats. It only needs to provide enough comfort for people to avoid responsibility without feeling weak. But understand this clearly, this is only the outer layer of the cage. The next layer explains why most people never step out, even when they know exactly where they are. The inferior identity. Modern slaves are not poor. They have enough money to survive. enough comfort to stay calm, enough distraction to stay asleep. That is precisely why they never leave. The real problem is not income. It is replaceability. Most people live inside a dangerously comfortable identity. I'm doing okay. Not great. Not broken. Just functional enough to continue. This identity is lethal to freedom. People with average skills bar rarely fail dramatically. And that is exactly what keeps them trapped. They perform well enough to remain useful, but never distinct enough to become necessary. They follow instructions. They improve incrementally. They adapt politely. And slowly, they disappear into a system that does not need them as individuals. They mistake survival for progress. They mistake competence for leverage. They mistake being tolerated for being valuable. That is why so many people live their entire lives under an income ceiling they never emotionally collide with. They are never desperate enough to rebel. Never hungry enough to risk. Never honest enough to confront who they actually are. To move beyond this ceiling, a person must face an uncomfortable truth, but their real limitation is not skill. It is identity. Breaking the ceiling requires confronting traits society quietly discourages. The desire for power, the willingness to be disliked, the ability to create tension, the courage to disrupt order. Most people do not want to see that version of themselves. So they adopt a safer self-image. I'm responsible. I'm realistic. I'm not reckless like those people. This identity protects their ego while keeping them perfectly in place. The system does not need to crush these people, it simply positions them. A role where effort is rewarded just enough. A role where absence causes no disruption. A role where 10 others can step in tomorrow without changing the structure. And the system pays accordingly, not to empower them. But to keep them calm. That is why so many intelligent, capable individuals never escape mediocrity. They are not blocked. They are parked. They are not oppressed. They are accommodated. And the most dangerous part is this. They call it maturity. They call compliance wisdom. They call fear practicality. They call replaceability humility. The system recognizes this identity early, and once it does, it exploits it flawlessly, quietly, efficiently, without force. Because a person who believes they are fine will never demand more. But this is still not the deepest layer, because even when someone sees this identity clearly, they still hesitate. And the reason they hesitate is exactly where power truly begins. The Machiavellian interpretation. If you look at the world through Machiavelli's lens, most moral questions become irrelevant. He never asked who was good. He never asked who worked hardest. He never asked who deserved more. He asked only one thing: who occupies a position others fear losing. Because in every power structure, behavior is not controlled by ideals. It is controlled by loss. People do not obey because something is right. They obey because something is at risk. This was understood centuries ago. Power does not come from virtue, effort, or intention. It comes from structural dependence. If you disappear tomorrow and nothing changes, you have no power, no matter how loyal, no matter how skilled, no matter how exhausted you are. Power emerges only at the point of constraint, the bottleneck. A bottleneck is a position where absence creates instability, where decisions stall, where outcomes shift, where the system must adapt. Only then does negotiation begin. The modern slave is the person who controls no bottleneck. They exist in roles designed for continuity, not leverage. Roles where replacement is fast, cheap, and invisible. And the system rewards these roles perfectly. Enough income to survive, enough recognition to comply, enough comfort to avoid rebellion. This is where most people make a fatal mistake. They confuse moral value with structural value. They believe that being ethical, diligent, and cooperative will eventually earn them power. Machiavelli knew better. Systems do not run on gratitude. They run on dependency. You are not compensated for being good. You are compensated for being difficult to remove. and here I, where the truth becomes unbearable. To control a bottleneck, a person must disrupt order. They must introduce friction. They must tolerate suspicion. They must survive conflict. No one is handed a position that others fear losing. That position is always taken, which means safety disappears the moment the pursuit begins. And that is why most people never even try. Not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack awareness, but because claiming power requires sacrificing something they cherish more than freedom, approval, belonging, the comfort of being seen as reasonable. They stay outside the power game, then complain about the rules. They reject leverage, then resent those who have it. They call power immoral to justify avoiding its cost. Machiavelli would not call them victims, he would call them self-excluded, because the system does not trap them. It simply rewards those who dare to make themselves indispensable and ignores those who refuse. And if the problem were only position, escape would be simple. But position is not the real obstacle. The real obstacle is what people are unwilling to lose in order to claim it. Dark truths. Here is the part most people instinctively resist. The system does not need free individuals. It needs stable, predictable ones. A society does not function on mass awakening. It functions on routine. People waking at the same hour, moving in the same rhythm, earning, spending, resting, repeating, decade after decade. Stability is not accidental, it is cultivated. Passion is encouraged, but only the kind that fits inside existing lanes. Balance is praised, but only balance that does not disturb the structure. Security is framed as maturity, because secure people do not create volatility. The most manageable individual is not the weakest one. It is the one who refuses to break rhythm, someone who does not disrupt schedules, does not create uncertainty, does not force recalibration. And here is the darkest truth. Many people are proud of this, proud of endurance, proud of sacrifice without authority, proud of carrying weight without control. They wear exhaustion like a badge. They confuse tolerance for pain with strength. They call suffering discipline. But endurance is not power. Endurance is simply the ability to remain in a damaging position without resistance. And systems love that, not because it is noble, because it is reliable. Reliable people do not demand leverage. They do not threaten disruption. They do not change rules. They show up. They comply. They absorb pressure. And they are rewarded just enough to continue. That is why society quietly discourages those who break rhythm, those who exit early, those who destabilize predictable patterns. They are labeled irresponsible, dangerous, immature, not because they are wrong, but because they introduce uncertainty, and uncertainty is the enemy of control. The people who pay to remain modern slaves often convince themselves they are being realistic. They say freedom is naive, risk is reckless, ambition is ego. They do not realize this language is not wisdom, it is self-defense. Because if they admitted the truth, that stability is purchased at the cost of autonomy, they would have to confront a choice they have avoided their entire lives. So instead, they normalize submission, they rationalize stagnation, they reframe obedience as adulthood. And the system does not punish them for this. It simply never offers them freedom. Because freedom creates variables, and variables threaten order. But even this is not the deepest chain. Stability alone does not keep people locked in place. The real shackle is more precise. Money is the lock, the wealth execution model. Money does not pay for ought. That belief is one of the most effective myths ever sold to the public. If effort were the metric, the most exhausted people on earth would be the most powerful. They are not. Money pays for position. More precisely, money flows toward roles that cannot be ignored. Every economic structure, no matter how complex it appears, is built on only 3 positions. The first, the replaceable position. If you disappear today, someone steps in tomorrow. Similar skills, similar cost, no disruption. This is where most people live their entire lives. They work hard, improve incrementally, stay reliable, and remain trapped under an income ceiling that never breaks. The system needs them, but it does not depend on them. The second, the difficult-to-replace position. These people have experience, specialization, institutional knowledge. Replacing them is inconvenient, sometimes expensive, but still possible. They are paid better, respected more, yet remain inside the structure. They are valuable, but not decisive. The third position is the only one that creates freedom. The irreplaceable position. If this person disappears, things stop. Decisions freeze, revenue is threatened, risk enters the system. And when risk appears, power shifts. This is where people misunderstand wealth. They believe wealth comes from working harder inside a role. In reality, wealth comes from occupying a role the system cannot afford to lose. This is why 99% never even reach the second level, let alone the third. They confuse skill improvement with position change. They become better servants. Instead of harder to remove variables, they upgrade themselves to be more useful, not less dependent. Freedom is not about having more money. Freedom is about having the ability to walk away without collapsing. If you cannot leave your job, your client, your platform, your contract without immediate financial death, you are not free, you are compliant. And here is the part most people refuse to accept. Even after understanding this model, most still fail. Not because the model is complex, but because moving up the hierarchy demands something far more expensive than effort. It demands abandoning familiarity, tolerating instability, surviving periods where nothing guarantees survival. Knowing the structure does not move you, only repositioning does. And repositioning always feels like destruction before it looks like progress. This is where people hesitate. This is where they retreat. This is where understanding becomes entertainment instead of action, because leaving a replaceable position means entering uncertainty, and uncertainty is exactly what they have spent their entire lives paying to avoid. So even with the map in front of them, most stay where they are. And this is why the next part matters, because failure does not happen in theory, it happens in real life, inside daily choices people make while telling themselves nothing else is possible. Real-world scenarios, not ideology, not motivation, actual people, actual decisions. The office worker, they wake on schedule, commute, complete tasks, attend meetings, collect a paycheck. They do not hate the job enough to quit. They do not love it enough to commit. They tell themselves they need stability, benefits, a safe path. What they are really buying is the right to avoid one question. If I leave this structure, who am I? They pay with time, they pay with energy, they pay with quiet resignation. All to avoid the uncertainty of standing alone. The small business owner, they believe they escaped the system. No boss, no fixed hours, no salary ceiling, but many have only changed masters. Instead of one authority, they answer to dozens of clients, constant NT cash flow anxiety, endless operational pressure. They stay busy to avoid something more dangerous, building a structure that functions without them. They trade long-term leverage for short-term control. Exhaustion becomes proof of legitimacy. They pay with perpetual urgency, so they do not have to risk redesigning their position. The freelancer or content creator, on the surface, they represent modern freedom, flexible schedules, creative autonomy, location independence. Underneath, many live in extended instability, income swings, platform dependence, algorithm shifts. They say they value freedom, yet avoid the hardest decision of all, creating a position that survives, even if the platform disappears. They pay with chronic uncertainty to avoid full responsibility for long-term structure. 3 paths, different labels, same behavior. Each group pays, directly or indirectly, to avoid the hardest road, the road that forces confrontation with true value, the road that removes excuses, the road that demands complete responsibility. And here is the shared illusion. They believe the problem is external. The company, the market, the economy, the platform, the timing. But the truth is simpler and far more uncomfortable. The problem is not outside. It is the decision they postpone their entire lives The decision to step into a role where failure is visible, where outcomes are personal, where no system absorbs the shock. Until that decision is made, every path becomes a variation of the same cage. Different shapes, different names, same function. That is why escape feels impossible. Not because the door is locked, but because stepping through it means abandoning every justification they have ever relied on. This is where most people stop, not at the limit of opportunity, but at the edge of responsibility. And the moment they turn back, the cage chends quietly, without resistance, without force, without drama. Power shifts. There is a moment where understanding becomes irrelevant, a moment where insight stops helping, where analysis becomes another form of delay. That moment arrives when a person realizes this. Freedom does not come from knowing more. It comes from a decision that cannot be undone. Not a mindset shift, not a new belief, not another perspective, a real decision. The kind that removes the option to retreat, the kind that makes comfort unavailable, the kind that forces reality to respond. This is where power actually moves. Power does not move. When you think differently, it moves. When you accept risk without guarantees, the decision to step into uncertainty, the decision to lose safety, the decision to take full responsibility without blaming systems, markets, or people. This decision is never dramatic. It is rarely visible. It does not announce itself. It happens quietly. When someone cuts their escape routes, when they stop designing lives that allow them to quit without consequence, when they stop choosing paths that preserve dignity at the cost of autonomy, when they stop keeping one foot inside the cage, just in case. Loss of safety is the first price of freedom. Loss of approval is the second. Loss of excuses is the final one. And this is exactly where most people turn back. They enjoy the idea of freedom. They admire those who risk everything. But they do not want to live without permission. They want optionality. They want backup plans. They want a way out when it becomes uncomfortable. But power does not exist where exits are preserved. The moment you leave yourself a clean retreat, you negotiate against yourself. The moment you protect safety, you surrender leverage. The moment you keep permission structures intact, the system keeps control. The power shift ends only when you accept this truth. No one is coming to save you. No structure will protect you. No guarantee will appear. Failure will be public. Loss will be personal. And success, if it comes, will belong entirely to you. This is not inspiring. This is not motivating. This is destabilizing. And that is precisely why it works. Because the system cannot predict. People who have nothing left to protect, it cannot manage those who no longer depend on approval. It cannot negotiate with someone who has already accepted the cost. This is the fracture point. Everything before it is theory. Everything after it is irreversible. And this is why what comes next is ruthless. Because once there is no system left to blame, only one question remains. Do you actually want freedom, or do you just want to understand it? Final revelation. Here is the final truth. The one most people refuse to face. 99% do not remain slaves because they are unaware. They remain because they are unwilling to pay the real price they already know. They know the system favors stability over freedom. They know replaceable roles cap their lives. They know safety is purchased with submission. They know comfort is a transaction. None of this is hidden anymore. What is hidden is the cost of leaving. Freedom demands isolation, not poetic solitude, real separation. The moment you step outside the shared script, you lose the comfort of agreement. People stop validating you. Some distance themselves. Others quietly hope you fail so they can feel justified for staying. Freedom demands humiliation. Your image breaks before your position improves. You look foolish long before you look capable. You lose the status of being reasonable long before you gain leverage. Freedom demands public failure. No protection, no buffering system, no institution absorbing the impact. When you fall, it is visible and owned entirely by you. This is where most retreat, not because they do not understand the system, but because they cannot tolerate exposure. without guarantees. Awakening culture avoids this. It sells clarity without consequence, insight without risk, truth without cost. But clarity does not free you. Understanding does not save you. Awareness only removes excuses. And when someone sees clearly and still does not move, they are no longer a victim. They become a participant. This is why most people never escape, not because the door is locked, but because walking through it requires sacrificing what they value more than freedom, approval, certainty, identity, the right to blame something else. At this point, there is nothing left to explain. No philosophy can soften it. No system can be blamed. No narrative can protect you. Only one question remains. It cannot be outsourced. It cannot be debated. It cannot be delayed. Are you willing to pay the price? Because the cost has always been clear, and most people have already decided. Final blade, there is nothing left to inspire here. No encouragement, no hope, no redemption arc. Because if after everything you have seen, you remain exactly where you are, the problem was never the system. The system does not require your understanding. It does not need your agreement. It does not even need you to believe it is fair. It needs only one thing, that you continue to pay, to stay where you are. You pay with your time. You pay with your energy. You pay by exchanging choice for comfort. You pay by accepting a role whose absence causes no disruption. No one is holding you. No one locked the door. No one forbade you from leaving. But no one promised to protect you from the cost of freedom either. That is why most people turn back. Not because they are blocked. Not because they are controlled. But because at the edge they recognize they do not want to pay. So they return to familiar work, to predictable routines, to reasonable explanations, to calling surrender realism. They continue talking about systems, about injustice, about being trapped, while quietly renewing the same agreement every single day. No one defeated them. No one oppressed them. No one stole their freedom. They simply did not choose it. Machiavelli would not moralize this. He would not comfort it. He would state it coldly. The system does not need you to believe it is right. It only needs you to keep paying, to stay where you are.